Have you ever felt like you're at the mercy of a relentless inner critic, constantly invalidating your feelings, telling you you're selfish, or making you feel like you're failing to live up to an ideal? Well, that voice isn't really you, and you have the power to silence it for good. This is Amara Strand, and welcome to another podcast episode. Today, we're excavating the origins of that critical inner voice that keeps you stuck in guilt, shame, and self-doubt. You'll learn where it comes from, why it exists, and most importantly, how to begin dismantling it. The inner critic is a default program, and every default program is a little different. It's helpful to use specific examples. So today we're taking apart a real-life inner critic default program submitted by one of my students named Sarah. By the end of today's talk, you'll have a better understanding of how to take apart a default program so you can reclaim your self-compassion, emotional freedom, and your rightful place at the center of your life. Let's get started by hearing from Sarah about her inner critic. Sarah writes, "I would love more clarity about critical thoughts I have about myself. For example, I'm going to the hospital today for scan results, and I feel anxious. My thoughts are on the worst case scenario, that the secondary cancer I have has progressed. But the worst part is that a voice in my mind is criticizing me for being anxious. Why do I make myself feel bad for not being able to transcend the original emotion? I also feel guilt that I've caused the disease through doing or not doing something, and that I've caused grief for the people around me, especially my daughter. I feel that my original emotion, for example, feeling angry that a shop assistant has been rude to me, is followed by the critical voice telling me I shouldn't be angry. The critical voice says, perhaps the assistant is ill or she's having a bad day. You should be able to rise above it. Be compassionate. Another example would be feeling guilty for saying I'm unable to meet up with a friend. The critical voice would say, well, perhaps they really need your help and maybe they won't be your friend anymore. You're selfish for putting your own needs first. So instead of just the original emotion being felt and dispersing, there's a secondary heavy emotion on top. I experience this as an inner dialogue, and I identify with the angry or guilty one defending herself against the critical entity. This program is a problem because my instinct is to withdraw from situations, which I fear will trigger the reaction. I'm in protection mode a lot of the time and hypervigilant, which can be exhausting. I would love to be able to approach life without fear and with curiosity and enthusiasm. I would love to be able to feel more compassionate and peaceful toward myself. Okay, thank you for this, Sarah. I think all of us can recognize some aspect of our own inner critic in Sarah's story. How many of you have experienced an inner critic that judges your feelings, telling you you shouldn't feel that way, you shouldn't have negative emotions, like being angry or fearful? Whenever you hear your inner voice throwing around that word should, you know you're dealing with some kind of default program. So let's take a closer look at what's going on with Sarah. And even though her details may not match your own, you'll want to take note of the process, which you can definitely use to deconstruct your own default programming. The first thing we need to do is figure out what's at the heart of this program. It's definitely a childhood survival program. When dealing with a childhood survival program, you want to observe it carefully and uncover the following key parts. Whose voice is it? The program is talking to you, and if you listen carefully, you'll realize it's not your voice. The persona behind the voice holds clues that can lead you back to where this program originated. Next, we'll discover the beliefs that form the backbone of the program. These are beliefs you held as a small child, and they have the power to keep you trapped in a false reality. Lastly, we'll uncover the hidden purpose of this program. The program was created to protect you from something. And once you can find out what that is, you can devise a healthy adult way to meet that need. This is so important because until the need is fulfilled by you consciously, the childhood survival program will continue to run as your default. I usually give names to programs, and I've named Sarah's childhood survival program the Eviction Protocol, and you'll understand why as we get into it. Let's start with this simple question. Who is this voice? Sarah, this voice is judging you, admonishing you, and you find yourself taking on the defensive posture of these two voices and two personas. You identify with the one being rebuked. You experience yourself as the one defending herself against the accuser. And right here you can see this voice is an authority figure. Sarah, I want you to take yourself back to your early childhood, not just thinking about yourself as a child, but move your mind and emotions, and especially your body. Move yourself back in time through your memories of being a young child. You can actually see and feel yourself getting smaller, younger, and turning into a small child. If it feels safe to do so, try to really inhabit the body and mind of that small child. Follow this accusing voice back in time, the one telling you that you're selfish. You know who this is, Sarah. You know where this voice comes from. Identify this voice. Who is the accuser? Now, let's examine the beliefs at the heart of this program. You're a bad person because you're selfish. What a wicked person you are, putting your feelings, your needs, and your desires ahead of the feelings and needs of others. You are inconsiderate and selfish. You have no right to feel angry or hurt or afraid. There is no space for your feelings in this family. You have no right to put yourself first. There is no space for your desires or needs in this family. When other people are hurt or angry, when other people are inconvenienced, it's your fault. It's all your fault. If you had given any thought to the well-being of others, this never would have happened. Look at what your selfishness has caused. So Sarah, I don't know you well, and I'm taking license here to illustrate this process. Listen to the messages behind the voice. They are familiar to you. This is a person whose disapproval loomed large for you as a child. And if you've done as I've suggested and placed your entire being back in time, you'll even see this person as a physically and energetically huge, oversized presence to that small child self. This may also be tied into religious indoctrination. I don't know if you were raised in a religious family. If so, perhaps you were given severe instruction that it's righteous to think of others and put yourself second, and that it's sinful to give importance to your own feelings, desires, and needs. Were you programmed into believing that denying yourself for the sake of others is not only a virtue, but the way to overcome your original state of selfishness, your original sinful nature? So let's return to that child self and the beliefs at the heart of this program. This program appears to have three key aspects. The first is the worldview. These are statements about reality that the program believes are true. Being selfish means you're a horrible person. You are responsible for the feelings and needs of others. Your feelings and needs are unworthy of consideration. You will be punished. You should take up as little space in your life as possible. These are the core beliefs that create the structure of this program. Sarah, you can uncover the program's core beliefs by finishing the statements for yourself. Being selfish means X. I am responsible for X. My feelings and needs are X. Be sure to take some time later to consider each of these three statements and finish them as honestly and clearly as possible. Don't do this intellectually, but from your gut, from your heart. Remember, this is coming from the perspective of your child self. Connect with that part of yourself and give her a voice. The second part is the accusation, and it looks something like this. You are selfish and irresponsible. When other people feel negative emotions, it's your fault. You should be a better person, but you're not. If there's a religious component to this, we can add the accusation of being sinful and unworthy in the eyes of God. And now the third aspect is the punishment. This is where we start digging into the belief equations that show you the hidden purpose at the core of this childhood survival program and what it's trying to protect you from. Since it is a childhood survival program, it is ultimately trying to protect you from death, but it uses some very faulty and outdated logic, the logic of the child self. It looks something like this. Taking up space is selfish, and being selfish makes me a horrible person. Horrible people are shunned and rejected. Being shunned equals death. Following this logic, the program comes to the conclusion that taking up space equals death. Putting myself first equals death. Now, this is a childhood survival program, and at its very core, as its name implies, it is created to protect a small child from death. As an adult, if your friends and family reject you, it's very painful but not lethal. But as a small child who has many years before they can fend for themselves, being rejected by your family, caregivers, and community can be fatal. So you develop a program to make sure you don't do the thing that might lead to the important people in your life withdrawing their approval, support, and love. And in this case, that one thing you must not do is be selfish. The thing you must not do is put yourself first. Of course, you're a grown woman now with a child of your own. This childhood survival program did its job protecting you until you were no longer dependent on your caregivers for survival, but it was never meant to continue into your adult life. So what does your child self need? Within every childhood survival program is an unmet need. You needed something as a child, but you couldn't get that need met in a healthy way. And if you don't find a way to meet that need right now in a healthy adult way, this program is going to continue to run. After all, its directive is to keep you safe, and the only way to disarm it is to take over its job and give yourself what you need now as an adult. So what did you need, Sarah, when you were that child? My intuition is that your parents' beliefs or your family's religious beliefs required you to evict yourself from the center of your inner life. You were required to fill that space, which is essentially your throne, your space of sacred authority, with everyone else. Everyone, people you love, but also just random people, angry shop assistants even. Anyone is welcome to occupy that space of importance except yourself. If you place other people in the center, you are a good person, or at least good enough. If you place yourself at the center of your inner life, you are a bad person and no one will want you. You plug other people into that center space and then all your energy naturally organizes around them. Their feelings, their needs, but there's no space left for you, Sarah. You're not worthy to take that space. The way I see it, your unmet need is to stop being an emotional and energetic refugee in your own life. This childhood survival program evicts you from your proper place, which is at the center. Whenever you try to reoccupy that space, the program sounds an alarm, putting your whole system on alert that you're now in danger. And the accuser jumps in to let you know in no uncertain terms that you are trespassing. That throne in the center of your life is not meant for you. You are a trespasser. Well, that sacred center space is meant for you and only you. Once you claim that seat and demonstrate to this child self, who is still stuck within the childhood survival program, once you demonstrate to her that she can trust that you will never again abandon your throne, she will release you. The program will release you. It's about permission. As a vulnerable child, you were not given permission to occupy the throne at the center of your inner domain. If you did, it meant you were selfish, a bad person, and no one would want you. You would be judged and rejected. So this program was created to keep you safe and prevent you from taking that center space. But now you're an adult, and there's no one who can grant or deny you permission anymore, Sarah. Only you can do this. And once you do, the child self trapped in the program will revise her understanding. She will know that you are in charge now, and you've decided it's safe. You've given yourself permission to occupy the center of your inner life, and at that point, you can reintegrate her back into yourself. You can bring her home. Now, let's talk about the mechanics of this program. There are two personas involved. One is the accuser and the other the accused. You've snuck into the center space and climbed up on the throne, and bam, the accuser comes in to let you know you are trespassing. What a horrible person you are for occupying that space. You're really familiar with that critical voice, and you experience it as separate from yourself. You don't identify with the voice of the accuser. The person you identify with is the one being accused. She feels the sting of the accusation and rises to defend herself against the accuser. And you feel this persona, the one defending herself, is yours. Now, would it surprise you to discover that neither of these voices, these personas, are yours? The accuser, the critical voice, is a program, and the persona that stands accused and gets defensive is also a program. The accused is a persona program that is created as a reaction to the extreme nature of the accuser. So picture this. You have these two voices or personas opposing each other, and neither of them are you. Both of them are part of a false reality. I wrote a whole article explaining how this works. It's really worth reading, and I'll link to it below. So Sarah, neither of these personas, these voices, are you, but they are loud and compelling. Once they activate, they take up a lot of focus and energy. They take up the whole stage. With that whole drama playing out between the accuser and accused, what chance is there for your authentic self to be heard, to be known? There is no space for you. Realizing this, you can stop allowing these two false personas to absorb all your energy and focus. You can learn how to turn down the volume, even turn down the vividness and saturation of the false reality of these two personas. You can learn to hone in on the real Sarah. You're currently taking the Peerless course, and in it, you'll learn techniques for moving and manipulating energy, memories, and programs in your energy field. But the first step, the critical step, is realizing what you are dealing with. Observe it. Learn everything you can about it. Just the act of doing this will create space between yourself and the program. And in that space, you can start to see for yourself that these personas are just programs, not living, not real, and not you. I want you to learn to interrupt the trigger. One thing I recommend trying straight away is creating a gap between the first persona and the triggering of the second persona. As soon as the accuser makes her appearance, you know the second persona, the accused, is going to get triggered. It's a mechanism after all. You can interrupt this process by using techniques you're learning in the Peerless course to snap out of your trance and become acutely aware. When you notice the accuser, critic, instead of moving seamlessly and unconsciously into the role of the accused, interrupt that process by centering, grounding, and becoming alert. Become the observer. Now you're watching the mechanism rather than being totally absorbed by its drama. You will see the persona of the accused launch into her defense, her opposition. Currently, you identify with this persona. Now that you know it's not you, you have space to stand aside and watch the two personas locked in their scripted drama. You will see that these are not you. You'll see very clearly how scripted and mechanized these personas are. Once you gain this clarity, you can stop the accused persona from activating. Or if she does activate, you can turn her volume all the way down, or use the other energy manipulation techniques you're learning to take her out of focus. Without the interplay between these two personas, what happens when the accuser is left on her own? I think it will surprise you how these two seemingly opposed personas are actually one, and how they require each other to function and maintain control. As you can see, there's a lot to learn and a lot you can do to work with and manipulate programs. You're not at their mercy. In my previous podcast, I explained in more detail about taking apart childhood survival programs, and the same basic process applies here, Sarah. After listening to this, you can revisit that, and I think you'll start to see the path forward. You're not responsible for looking after the feelings, needs, and desires of other people. You don't need to live up to someone else's contorted ideal of what it means to be a good person. And it's time to take back your position in the center of your life, of your inner domain. The thing is, we're all confused about responsibility. And here, I'm not talking about mundane responsibility like earning a living and eating healthy and paying bills on time. I'm talking about something much more fundamental: existential responsibility. What's truly mine? What am I responsible for? You see, a lot of people take responsibility for things that are not theirs. They assume responsibility for aspects of life that belong to other people, and that never works, never. And while you're busy taking on things that don't even belong to you, you're neglecting what does belong to you. You're not taking responsibility and being accountable for what is truly yours. This is one of the foundations of developing true personal authority, but it's also at the heart of cultivating fidelity to yourself. At the start of this podcast, Sarah said she wants to be able to be compassionate toward herself. But how can any of us be compassionate to ourselves? How can we welcome ourselves unconditionally without cultivating a steadfast faithfulness to ourselves? The foundation of this self-fidelity is responsibility, understanding and fully accepting what you're truly responsible for and letting go of what is not yours to fix, not yours to manage, not yours to carry. And this is the subject of my next podcast. So I hope you'll join me as I discuss this fascinating and often misunderstood topic. Thank you for being here with me today. And Sarah, thank you so much for sharing what you've been going through with us. I wish you well and hope this has given you a clearer understanding of this default program and how to begin dismantling it. Now, if getting out of default mode is something you're ready to start working on, you'll find more resources on my website, amarastrand.com, and I've linked to them below. Okay, everyone, have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.